If you've ever watched the World Cup and thought, why is the entire planet obsessed with this sport? You're not alone. Because here's something crazy. The FIFA World Cup gets more viewers than the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, and the World Series combined. And by 2026, millions of Americans will watch football for the very first time. So in the next few minutes, you'll learn exactly how football works, why people love it so much, and how to watch a game without feeling completely lost.
Let's start with the easiest question. What actually is football? At its core, football is incredibly simple. 2 teams, 11 players on each side, 1 ball. The goal is to score by getting the ball into the other team's net. That's it. No touchdowns, no timeouts every few minutes, no offense and defense teams switching players. The game just keeps going. And that's one of the biggest reasons people love football. It's non-stop. Imagine basketball with fewer commercials and a lot more tension. Now here's the weird part. A football game can end with only 1 goal. Or even 0 goals. For many Americans, that sounds boring. How can people watch 90 minutes and celebrate 1 score? Because in football, every goal feels like hitting a game-winning shot. Imagine if every basket in basketball was worth 50 points. Suddenly, every chance becomes massive. That's football. Now let's talk about the field. The field is huge, way bigger than an American football field. And because it's so big, players need incredible stamina. Some players run nearly 7 miles during a single match. That's almost a half marathon, while being chased by world-class athletes. Now, each team has 11 players, and every player has a job. The goalkeeper is easy. He's the only player allowed to use his hands. Think of him as the quarterback and goalie combined. Then you have defenders. Their job is simple. Don't let the other team score. In front of them are midfielders. These players are like the engine of the team. They defend. They attack. They run everywhere. Some fans call them the hardest working players on the field. Then there are the forwards. These are the stars. Their job is scoring goals. Think of them as the basketball player who always takes the final shot. Now here's something surprising. The biggest football stars sometimes touch the ball for less than 2 minutes in an entire game. Yet they can completely change everything with 1 magical moment. That's why football feels so dramatic. 1 second can decide an entire tournament. Now, let's talk about the clock. A football match lasts 90 minutes. 2 halves, 45 minutes each. And unlike American sports, the clock never stops. If a player gets injured or there are delays, the referee simply adds extra time at the end. That's why you'll sometimes see games reaching 95 or even 100 minutes. And yes, goals scored in those final seconds count. Some of the greatest moments in sports history happened in added time. Imagine hitting a game-winning buzzer beater after the buzzer should have already sounded. That's football. Now, you're probably wondering, why don't players just stand next to the goal, waiting for an easy pass? Well, because of the most confusing rule in football: offside. And honestly, even long-time fans sometimes get confused. Here's the simplest explanation. You can't camp near the opponent's goal waiting for the ball. You need defenders between you and the goal when the pass is made. Think of it like cherry picking in basketball. Football created a rule to stop that. Without offside, games would become chaos. Players would simply stand next to the net all day. Now let's talk about scoring, because goals are rare. The average football game has only 2 or 3 goals. That's fewer scores than almost every major American sport. And somehow, That makes every goal feel bigger. When a team finally scores, fans explode. People cry. They hug strangers. Entire cities celebrate. In some countries, you can literally hear fireworks after a goal. Because when goals are rare, they become precious. Now, here's another thing that confuses new fans. Why do players sometimes kick the ball away instead of shooting? Because football is like chess. Teams are constantly creating space. Sometimes moving backward is actually the best way to move forward. The smartest teams don't always attack immediately. They wait. They move the ball. They pull defenders out of position. Then suddenly, boom! One pass, one chance, one goal. Now let's talk about something every new fan notices. The fans. Football fans are different. Really different. Many clubs are over 100 years old. Families support the same team for generations. Grandparents pass teams down to their children and grandchildren. Imagine being born into a family where supporting one team isn't a choice. It's part of your identity. That's football culture. And the World Cup takes that emotion to another level. Because during the World Cup, it's not club versus club. It's country versus country. Players aren't representing a city. They're representing millions of people. Entire nations stop to watch. Schools close. Workplaces pause. Some countries throw giant street parties. The final of the World Cup is one of the most watched events on Earth. Billions of people tune in. Billions. That's almost half the planet. Now here's something amazing. The United States, Canada, and Mexico are hosting the 2026 World Cup. For the first time ever, the tournament will have 48 teams. More countries, more matches, more drama. And millions of Americans will experience football's biggest event for the very first time. Which means right now is probably the perfect time to learn the game. Because once you understand football, something strange happens. You start seeing things differently. A simple pass becomes brilliant. A defensive play becomes exciting. A scoreless game suddenly becomes tense. And then one goal can make you jump out of your seat. So if someone asks you what football is, here's the answer. It's simple. Two teams trying to score. But underneath that simplicity is strategy, emotion, drama, and moments that entire countries remember forever. That's why billions of people love this game. And by the time the World Cup arrives in 2026, you won't be watching as a complete beginner anymore. You won't be watching as a complete beginner anymore. You'll actually know what's happening. And trust me, that makes football a whole lot more fun. If you enjoyed this and want to understand the World Cup, football rules, and everything else before 2026, hit subscribe. Because this is just the beginning of your football journey.